At the turn of the 20th century, progressives took charge in the turning of the tides of the status quo in the United States. Nellie Griswold Francis stands out as a minority leader in the fight for women's suffrage. Standing against all odds in a society that oppressed women and African Americans, belonging to both groups, she still found victory in her appeal to justice. Francis lived from November 7, 1874 to December 13, 1969. Originally from Nashville, Tennessee, Francis moved to St. Paul, Minnesota in 1883. She was an activist in the progressive era, which spanned from the 1890s to the late 1910s. This was a contentious and transformative period for the advancement of rights for women and minorities. She helped achieve women's suffrage and anti-lynching laws in Minnesota. In the Appeal newspaper, June 13, 1891, an account is given of one of Francis' early feats. She showed her resolve and leadership skills early on in life at her high school commencement, in which she was the only African American to give a speech. Her speech, titled "The Race Problem," touched on the ongoing racial inequity and discrimination taking place in the United States. The Appeal notes an audience member's reaction as, "No speaker of the evening was more enthusiastically received than Nellie Griswold Francis." She went on to oversee the formation of various organizations and assumed leadership roles to achieve her civil rights ambitions. She organized the St. Paul Federation, founded the Every Woman Suffrage Club, served as the president of the Minnesota State Federation of Colored Women's Clubs, served on the board of the local NAACP chapter, and was active in the Republican Party. She was tenacious in recruitment, fundraising, and had a keen ability to sway powerful figures. Her fight for suffrage was accomplished in Minnesota in September 1919, moving one step closer to her dream of an egalitarian society. During the fight for suffrage, Nellie's attention was divided because of ongoing racial inequities and violence. She diverted much of her efforts to racial justice to defend her fellow African Americans. The relentless onslaught of racial prejudice and violence of the early 20th century resulted in heinous acts such as lynchings of African Americans. Francis sought to outlaw this practice and put her campaigning skills to service. After years of campaigns, protests, and political activism, Francis once again saw victory in the passage of anti-lynching laws in Minnesota, 1921. The accomplishments of women's suffrage and passage of anti-lynching laws were undoubtedly feats of tremendous proportions, but perhaps her most enduring triumph was bridging the divide between races, something that tore the nation apart no less than 10 years before Francis was born. Francis, being half black and half white, served as a symbol for racial coherence. Her racial background gave her the unique ability to appeal to black and white leaders, as well as recruit both races for civil rights causes. A letter by Francis states, "This broad united stand of the suffrage body for the principles of democracy, which must include black women as well as white, will win for the cause of suffrage many sympathizers who would otherwise have been indifferent to its success. The cause of suffrage will triumph, for it is just." Francis makes clear in her goal of suffrage, black and white women must stand together in their appeal for equality. Nellie's hope for racial coherence and capacity to lead movements of African American and white women led to the passage of women's suffrage. Examining the feats accomplished by Francis, such as women's suffrage and the passage of anti-lynching law, allow for introspection as a society and how we view the formation of the United States we see today. Characters such as Francis serve as an example in battling oppression and prejudice. These negative facets of the past echo in today's world, beckoning for new leaders like Francis to take the reins and steer towards progress.